Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Now, one of the big things I'm noticing more and more recently is the simplification of all things tech. Some will say oversimplification, because nobody appreciates the complexities and what goes on under the hood anymore. But in a world of one-click checkouts and personalization of almost everything, the complex technologies behind them are, yes, reduced to words like cloud, low-code, AI. But if you ask anyone what AI is or what blockchain is, you might get very different answers from each person. But all that is an argument for another day, because I think what is important is that businesses can create solutions quicker, react, adapt, evolve as and when, rather than waiting 2 years for an IT project to be delivered, because things have changed. So today I've invited Nick Ford from Mendix onto the podcast to discuss some of the recent trends that have contributed to the rise of low-code adoption all over the world. And he's going to share some of the most compelling findings from a recent survey commissioned by Mendix about low-code adoption in the manufacturing sector too. And we'll also have a chat about the launch of Mendix 9 and how it can help businesses develop apps up to 10 times faster. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to Sheffield here in the UK so we can speak with Nick Ford from Mendix. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Of course. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on the show. I'm delighted to be here. My name is Nick Ford. I'm the Global Vice President of Product and Solutions Marketing for Mendix. That role, entails many things, but predominantly it's about messaging the Mendix platform to all our key sort of geographies. So I'm sort of my team is the voice behind, I guess, the product towards our customer base. So yeah, that's pretty much what I do on a daily basis.
Excellent. And Mendix is a Siemens business and global leader in enterprise low code that enables thinkers to become makers. But there will be people listening all over the world, and some might be hearing about Mendix for the first time. So can you tell me a little bit more about how you're reinventing how applications are built in the digital enterprise right now?
Yeah, but it's a really good question. It's an interesting one because this journey goes back, more than 15 years. When the founders of our company set out to change the way that software was developed, and they identified a specific problem, which is getting bigger and bigger as days go by, and that's the gap between the person who understands a business problem and the software engineer has the capability to be able to create the software to meet that business challenge. So over these past number of years, we've built a platform to bridge that gap. It's broadly a communication problem. One person understands business, the other understands software. And trying to get them to talk a common language has been a perennial problem. And as I say, that gap's getting bigger. We think of it as a divide between the two. So our platform is pretty simple. It's aimed at allowing developers with no coding background, no coding experience to build sophisticated software that might run on a mobile device, on a web browser, multiple, using simple drag and drop capabilities. So imagine you have a canvas where you can paint the screens, you can design the logic through flows, through reusable components, and you don't have to be a software engineer to do that. So we're empowering people with this sort of abstraction and automation to enable them to take into their own hands how they solve the business problems that they have. Many of our users really want to build software, but it's just been too difficult to do. And now with the advent of Mendix, we're able to give them those tools to solve their own business problems with Mendix. So yeah, that's typically what we do. Speed and agility, digitization is driving that demand. And as I say, that gap's just got bigger and bigger as time has gone on.
And there do seem to be more and more no-code solutions, and application development is a real crowded industry at the moment. So how would you say Mendix is unique within the application development industry, or what is it you think you provide a little bit different from other solutions out there?
Yes, you're absolutely right. It is getting crowded. I mean, you look out there right now and most products are moving towards some kind of low-code offering. It's a natural extension of what I've talked about. I'm trying to just open up the aperture to more and more people to use these kinds of technologies to solve those business problems. But I think there's a few unique things about Mendix. One is that we are seen by the Forresters and the Gartners of this world, or the analysts, as the leader in this space. I think makes us unique in that respect. The out and out leader, as Forrester has positioned us very recently, and Gartner sees as sort of visionary. So I think we're leading the pack from a technology and a vision perspective. I think what's interesting about the way Mendix approaches this is, we've always tried to solve that collaboration problem. So we've never really thought of it as a technology problem. We've thought of it as a communication problem. So the core DNA of Mendix is really about how do we facilitate multiple key stakeholders who are building software to participate in that process, often a complex process. And so we have a technology which creates this continuous interaction across those key personas. That could be a professional developer working alongside a citizen developer, as we call them, and the platform facilitates that. It abstracts a lot of the complexity away, and means that they can work on a level pegging. They can both participate in a really meaningful way to building better software faster. Accelerating just the software development side of things is not really solving the problem. What's important is, are we building software that's actually workable, usable in the field today? So one of those is we have this sort of spectrum, or what's spectrum is the best way of putting it, of where we facilitate multiple different stakeholders with different skill sets to collaborate in one platform. And we manage the complexities of things like version control and how they do that. We take away that burden so they can really focus on the business needs and challenges. We have a unique sort of pricing model, which means we differentiate in terms of the way we price our product to cater for those different types of users. We're the only platform, for example, that provides sort of free anonymous usage of applications, which I think is really important when you're scaling big solutions. And I think, one of the things that I do find is important is to provide specific capabilities that are relevant to skill set. A lot of our competitors would provide you with an abstracted development environment, which is visual by nature. But actually, even when you get to the visual level, that can be too complex for many citizen developers. So we've specifically created a platform that has tooling for citizen no-code development and sort of what we call business engineering, which is sort of more, towards rapid development, and then professional developers. So I think it's that package of all-in-one low code that facilitates that ability to collaborate.
And we are living in a digital world now where almost everything is simplified, and not too many people know or even care what goes under the hood, whether that be watching something on Netflix or the algorithms that create their latest playlist that they're listening to, and those one-click shopping checkouts that we all are familiar with. But I'm curious, as someone right in the heart of the industry, what are the recent trends that you think have contributed to the rise of low-code adoption all over the world?
Well, there are many, many to choose from, and I'll pick on one obvious one, but there are many. The fact that the consumer is much more discerning now. They really want to engage with experiential solutions. They're not interested in just, as you say, a clunky browser interface anymore. They want something that works equally well on a mobile, and they can pass from mobile to their web browser to Alexa to all of the new technology stacks. So this sort of explosion in technology is driving significant trends towards the desire and need for better software. Experiences everywhere, right? Competing for the consumer is really about, can you engage them? There's so much happening in the world. It's a lot of it's so transient that if you can create an experience for a user, a customer, or an employee that they can engage with. So the trend in multi-experience platforms, which is really aimed at capturing the customer or the employee where they hang out, giving them just what they need and enough, but not too much, and then keeping them on a journey is one thing. I think, you talked about it a bit earlier, abstraction and automation to support that. We're seeing the democratization of lots of technology stacks that weren't accessible many years ago, machine learning, visual recognition systems. So as that starts to commoditize, the trends drive more and more demand for insights and experience. But there's one really important factor, as tragic as it is, that COVID has significantly changed everybody's lives, and we're not going back, I don't think, as a result of that. And as horrific as it's been and still continues to be, for many countries, many people around the world, it's been a really forcing factor for most organizations to take on the digital journey, to accelerate that digital journey. We're looking at people who are, 3 to 4 years advancing where they thought they would be prior to COVID, in an attempt to deal with, this overnight demand that people working in offices, customers, accessible to now everybody working from home. So we've seen that drive a tremendous appetite for software to bridge that gap as we all, disperse to our homes and we're all remote. So it's been an incredibly, almost a real world test of this kind of technology. We've always known that low code is a way of developing software, works and delivers, but COVID really forced organizations to go back to the drawing board, think about how they approach digitizations of their business, and low code has accelerated as a result of that. And I think that's why you're seeing now most products are coming up with some form of low code offering. So lots of converging factors, lots of sort of industry trends that are coming together. But, as I say, tragic as COVID is, and it still remains that way, it has been a forcing factor for many organizations to adopt a low code approach.
And one of the things I try and do on this Daily Tech podcast is getting people thinking differently about technology, and also think about areas that are affected and impacted and transformed by technology that they wouldn't automatically associate with it. And before you came on the podcast today, I was doing a little bit of research, and I came across a recent survey that was commissioned by Mendix all about low-code adoption in the manufacturing sector. So I'm curious, what were the big findings in there for anyone listening that has not seen that report?
Yeah, really interesting. I mean, what was important for us about this is it validates a lot of things that we've been saying for many years, a lot of the things that we're really passionate about as a business and about a technology provider. And it underpinned, I guess, some of the trends I talked about, and some of the sort of, analyst predictions. I think analysts are predicting that, this year, 75% of all software will be, be generated using a low-code platform. This has sort of been touted as a year that low-code really comes of age. And what we found in this survey is that, the people that we would want to empower with this technology are really seeking it out and they want to learn. So just some numbers, 83% of the survey respondents were interested in learning digital skills. So this is people in the manufacturing workplace. It's not, those people that traditionally would have been exposed to technology, which actual fact, in a lot of cases in manufacturing is very few people are exposed to sort of software and technology at that level. So, 10, 83% really do want to embrace this way of building. 62% are looking or seeking to acquire those digital skills and feel that's becoming a much more important part of their role as they extend the role. What we've also seen that 87% of US manufacturing workers want to learn low code. They've identified low code as a technology out of all the technologies that they could go and adopt as a vehicle to not only help them to solve their own business problem, but also to invest in their careers. And the way that I look at low code is that, I've been on this journey for many years. Low code hasn't just happened in the last 15 years. It's been a journey we've been on. And for me, it's about how do we put software development in the hands of everyone? Make it accessible to anyone to build software. It shouldn't be beholden to a small few. What this survey underpinned for us is that demand is there. There's a demand and an appetite, certainly within the manufacturing sector, to upskill the workforce from the workforce itself. That to me was really both exciting to validate what we've been saying for many years, but also to see that there's a way now in which we can provide skills back to these individuals where they can, extend their capabilities, they can grow, and they can really add value in their day-to-day jobs in a way perhaps they couldn't do before.
And was there anything in that survey that surprised you at all?
Well, there were a couple of things. I mean, the biggest surprise for me was just the sheer demand for this kind of technology, and it was surprising just the level of desire to learn this technology. But there was one in particular metric which US workers were more willing to contribute in the workplace from a digitization perspective over their counterparts in Germany. 78% in the US and sort of 61% in Germany. So there's a difference there that I was surprised about. When you look at the sort of German manufacturing sector, sort of world class, that sort of stuck out to me as a metric that surprised me a little bit. I would have expected maybe a difference in those two measures. But yeah, I think most part for me was just the sheer appetite and demand, for people to want to adopt this way of working.
Excellent. And something else I was reading about was the launch of Mendix 9. And for any of your existing customers that might be tuning in to find out more about that, can you tell me about a little bit more about the launch and how it can help businesses develop apps up to 10 times faster? I mean, that's phenomenal.
Yeah, it is 10 times faster with significant less resource. I think 10 times faster with 70% less resources to build those applications. So we're not only accelerating app development, we're also cutting the size of the sort of investment in teams to get there. So if you can take your existing teams and just generate way more software much more rapidly. So I think that's really interesting, the acceleration of the software development process. But Mendix 9 is our latest iteration. It's our latest and greatest iteration. It builds on our many years of what we like to think is radical abstraction and automation. That's what this is about. It's about how can you get away from the complexities and how can you automate some of these complex tasks to put them in the hands of people who really don't understand the underlying complexity. You talked about it earlier, the one-click, deployments, and you buy something through Amazon. If you really drill into it, think about what happens behind that one button click, there's a huge amount of automation takes place. So part of our Mendix 9 launch is to take that radical abstraction and automation and to push into adjacent spaces. And we're the leader in our space and have been for many years, but building applications is about getting to data. And so it's great to accelerate the app development side of it, but if it's slow to get access to your data, for example, then we're solving part of the problem. So in Mendix 9, we launched a number of sort of adjacent technologies, which one of which is what we call our data hub platform. That's really about taking low code to the data and integration space, making it simple to go find trusted sources of data. Search a catalog of data that I might want to use, find out who owns it, get access to that, understand whether it's secure. Is it a trusted source of data? And when it is, simply just drag that data into my application, start to use it without worrying about where it sits in the world. How do I get to it? What complexities involved? So we're looking at that sort of pushing low code into those adjacent spaces. That's one example. We've seen a significant rise in the demand for workflow. Just automating both simple and complex problems, either from a departmental perspective or from a complete enterprise perspective. So again, we've always been able to develop workflow solutions, but we've launched our new workflow editor, which is part of the platform, and takes that same paint, drag and drop approach to building these complex workflows that are visual in nature. And what we found incredibly is that that's helped professional software developers, business users to model these processes and use them as this sort of collaborative fabric to think about those technology. We're doing the same with artificial intelligence. So inside our platform now, we have a neural network which is monitoring these models, and it's giving you next best actions. So if you've never developed software before, you've got a sort of programmer looking over your shoulder, albeit an artificial intelligent model, and it's looking at what you're doing and say, actually, based on what you did and what we think you're going to do, this should be the next thing you should do. Do you want me to show you how to use it? Would you like to do it, me to do it for you? So, Mendix 9 has been a significant shift in the way we've expanded our low-code approach to adjacent spaces, to make it simpler, to not just build the applications, but also to get at the data, to leverage machine learning models, to build workflows. So it's a very important release for us, and one that's going down extremely well.
And Mendix is a global business, and I'm curious, from all the conversations you're having with customers scattered all over the world, especially because of everything that's happened over the last 12 months, are there any trends in the kind of requests that are coming into your team at Mendix?
Yes, there are. Without a doubt, we've seen the request for intelligent process automation, that ability to not only build the applications, but to automate these processes. That's certainly an area we've seen a rise in demand for, and in part why we launched our workflow solution in the way that we did, embedding it into the fabric of building your applications. So we've seen a rise in that. Multi-experience, I talked about it earlier. We can't hide from the fact now that it's not good enough to just provide somebody with a mobile solution. They want this all-immersive environment, and we're vying for people's time. We need to make it super simple to use. So we're seeing a rise in the demand for multi-experience solutions that span different touch points. So waking up in the morning and asking Alexa to send you your sales report for today, and when you log into your application online, there it is, pops up in all its glory because you asked for it. Automating those processes using these new technologies has driven a significant demand. So yeah, we're seeing very much artificial intelligence is another, where not only are we looking to apply this artificial intelligence to the development process, but now you can commoditize machine learning models for specific business patterns and problems, which means you can provide those to citizen developers to embed in their software. Think about scanning documents for key phrases, sentiment, looking at images. So we see an awful lot of demand for bringing these disparate low-code initiatives together using a platform like ours. It's driven predominantly from what you term as the composable enterprise. So packaged business capabilities, best in breed. So it's an assembly. Think of it like building a Lego plane or a car, where you've got these building blocks, you can put them together. So we've seen low-code driving that demand, and also facilitating that ability to be able to pull these significant new initiatives together into a productive way of building software.
And they do say that there's no words more damaging in business than, but we've always done it this way. In fact, if anything good has come out over the last 12 months, is we've started to think differently, think bigger, and explore the art of the possible. And on those grounds, I mean, what excites you about the road ahead at Mendix?
Well, there's two things. I've been chasing this down as a dream for many years, so this is a passion for me. So what's important is I'm seeing that low code is being adopted. It's been adopted significantly within enterprise organizations, that are building real software solutions. The examples of that. We have a partner, Anttail, who produced a solution for the Uruguayan government, who are for tracking COVID vaccines that need to be moved in highly temperature controlled environments. So combining IoT and low-code platforms and solving real world problems that happen overnight. So there's examples of what are exciting applications of our software. But for me, what's really important as sort of low-code shifts from being a category of product to a sort of paradigm, what's important to me is that economy that is built around the low code. So it becomes less about accelerating software development and more about facilitating business and using low code as the catalyst to build business and build an ecosystem and economy. What we're most interested about is taking our platform from being a development platform to being an end user platform. So how do we bring together an ecosystem of partners, customers, our Mendix community, building reusable components, solutions, services, and then facilitating this sort of marketplace where they can trade with each other and accelerate digitization to the next level by reusing these components across this ecosystem. And we're looking at that very specifically in our all-in-one low-code platform. We launch our marketplace and we grow our ISV program. So what's important is as low-code now has taken a foothold, we need to look at how we build that ecosystem and economy around it. And we want to be right at the center of that. And we're well positioned to do so with our technology stack and all the things that we're doing to address, the sort of supply and demand side of things. So it's great to see it evolve into something where we can really, help organizations to build and share in the experience of, building software that can happen in days. Where examples of where software for solutions are built, in a matter of 12 days to solve real world business problems. So I'm looking to see more of that as the technology space expands, and hopefully we sit in the core of that.
Excellent. Well, I'll be looking forward to following you on that journey as well. It'd be great to stay in touch with you on the latest announcements. But before I let you go, a question I always like to ask my guests is if there was a particular song or piece of music that has been with them throughout their career in technology, or maybe even inspired them in some ways. Is there a particular song that springs to mind, and why would that be?
Yes, there is. Growing up in the 90s in Sheffield, actually in a mining village just outside of Sheffield. Now, I always have, I'm always drawn to one song, and I do play this if I'm going to go on and speak on stage. And I play it very often. It's by a band called Pulp. It's called Disco 2000, which you might well know. And maybe you've played it for others in the past, but that's quintessentially my upbringing. I think about Sheffield. Jarvis Cocker is a Sheffield born and bred, and I love the sentiment of that song. I can relate to it. And it has a special meaning for me. Growing up that era, I remember seeing Pulp at Glastonbury. It was special times.
Oh man, we must be men of a similar age. I was brought up in Derby, which is just down the road from Sheffield, and Pulp were huge for me too. So I'll be adding that to the playlist. But before I let you go, can you remind the listeners of where they can find you online and contact your team if they've got any questions? Yeah,
sure. I mean, best place to go is www.mendix.com. All of our social media links are on there. Look us up. You'll see access to our digital presence. You'll also have access to me and some of our team. We'd love you to come search us out. Happy to have a conversation with anybody who wants to talk to us. Whether that's about Pulp or about low code, I don't mind. But yes, www.mendix.com is where you can find us best.
Excellent. Well, I've loved chatting with you about the recent trends that have contributed to the rise of low-code adoption. Also, that recent survey about low-code adoption in the manufacturing sector, and of course, the launch of Mendix 9 and that phenomenal stat there of helping businesses develop apps in up to 10 times faster with less resources as well. But more than anything, just thank you for taking the time to have a chat with me and share those stories with me today.
No, it's been an absolute pleasure, and thanks for having me on the show. I've enjoyed it incredibly.
I do love how the simplification of technology is enabling businesses to deliver much more quickly. And I could have chatted with Nick about all this and our mutual love of staying on Worthy Farm for the Glastonbury Festival in a completely separate interview too. But I will be following developments at Mendix and hope to get them back on soon. So over to you. What are your thoughts on anything that we've discussed or highlighted today? I want to hear your opinions, your insights, your experiences. You can do that by simply emailing me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, tweet me at Neil C. Hughes, and my website is techblogwriter.co.uk. But I'm afraid that's it for today's episode, so a big thank you for listening as always, and until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.